And thus, I would like to give the floor to Linda Leitane, who will tell us about the importance of these competition and what can we learn from such competitions in the 20th century and this century.
The theme of my presentation is Architecture Contest for Housing in Riga. I will divide my presentation in three parts. So the first part will be about the contest on its essence, and then within the context of Latvia, and then I will talk about the housing contests. So what is a housing contest? Traditionally, that is a method of investigation and an innovative method. In these events, we can facilitate critical architectural practice between collective collaboration, individuals, architects, and so on. From one hand, it's a myth that contests serve as a basis for new directions. Others say it's useless exercise, wasting financial, economical resources. Reasons for those contests are several. Mainly, these are investors which try to get different views and ideas about possible solutions, legal aspects, about regulations. These may be private, state, or municipal. Regardless of what kind of contests are organized. So organizers are either state or municipality, which more finance big buildings like office buildings, schools, hospitals, and so on. Private organizers more concentrate on houses. Typology in those contests is twofold. They have been both as open as closed contests, and also open with anonymous contestants, and also these contests may have one round, several rounds. They are local, they have been also international. Mostly the contest consists of the program where the architect's qualification, criteria of evaluation, materials, tasks are mentioned. The latest tendencies are the ones that in all those contests, participants who have just started their private practice actually are unable to participate and to give their opinion because they can't pass the qualification. Also, we see close relation with the task and results of the contests. Members of jury mostly are architects, representatives of construction boards, and other establishments, also governmental representatives are there. Results actually depend on the adequate content of the jury, on adequate evaluation criteria, and their evaluation of particular works. In Latvian practice, we see different types of jury evaluations. These are granting of first premium, sometimes first and second premium. Sometimes first premium is not granted because of different reasons, but the developer is continuing the work with the persons granted second or third premium. In Latvia, for the last 150 years, we have had more than 906 contests. This practice actually exists in the world for the last 200 years, but architectural contests in Europe have been popular only for the last 150 years. In the context when we go through all these time periods in which Latvia was, we can establish that the beginning is of end of 50s when in 19th century when Latvia was in the Russian Empire, there was a First World War, and when the first independence period was gained, then these activities were stopped and they were not so active in contest anymore. Next is the Soviet occupation regime. That started in 1940. Then Second World War, Soviet occupation. And the next period is second independence period of Latvia. If we talk about the typology, there are different. They are for culture buildings, administrative buildings. So you can see maybe the column 2007, there were approximately 100 contests per year. On average, per year in Latvia, we have 20 contests, and that is appropriate situation. But if we take out from this number of contests the ones devoted to housing, that is approximately 230, or 1/3. Separately, we can look at the historical center, and just because it's included in the UNESCO World History Heritage, and there is a special protection law passed, and stipulating that the buildings, that the construction of new buildings is started only after winning open housing contest. As I already mentioned, the private sector mostly concentrates to the rent market or proposals of wide territory development. However, public procurement in all the times have been concentrated on social housing, urban development, creation of new city centers outside Riga. And of course, I have to mention that private procurement didn't exist in Soviet times. And the Soviet times coincide actually with the decision on 1961 concerning organizing of contests in architecture, and actually that's one of the first legislative acts stating the need for architecture contests. In 1965, the previous decision lost its force, and in 1965 there was a new decision concerning development of unique buildings and architecture contests, and at that time also industrial construction methods were introduced in Latvia. The production of prefabricated panels had started then, so it was construction boom, sort of. Now we have public procurement law in force and protection law in force. For the last 20-year openness to Western markets is facilitated actually by internationally announced open architecture contests. And that means that contests which are defined as international have higher requirements for organizers, for procedure, for qualification of local participants. Usually they are organized for urban planning. Here you can see the map and those 230 objects, and the biggest part is concentrated in Riga. If we zoom Riga, darkest spot is RVC zone, and then there is a lighter circle around that is protection zone, and by RVC I mean Riga Historical Center. There you see zoom of Riga Historical Center. There you see marked all those contests organized in the last 20 years. I'm not able, unfortunately, give you overview on the implementation and realization because a lot of these projects actually are still on the shelves of the architectures, and some of those projects are continued in the project of drafts. Closer to the center, these are social and also private buildings. If there was not the decision passed on 2003 and this law on Riga Historical Center, we could have expected chaotic construction and building in Riga Historical Center, but now we are able in one way or other to control this process. Because of the price crisis, as I mentioned, a lot of objects are not realized, but a lot of them have been taken out from the shelves and people are trying to continue what has started. Those heated discussions are going on between architects and institutions concerning those 7 years after crisis. Isn't it too long? Can we look adequately on that offer of that time? Maybe some ideas are already outdated, and maybe we need to have new contests. Nobody is able to give answers, not construction board, not historical monument protection committee, nor architects. So we have to think about that. Typology of Riga housing. We have there several types. Typological projects that these were mentioned in the previous presentation. Single family houses, they have been implemented before First World War, also after the Second World War. So there were 2 contests then, and these were for individual living houses. In Soviet times, 50s, 60s, also such a type of projects and contests exist. Residential buildings, individual construction of individual countryside houses, large-scale residential projects. Again, a lot of them are implemented or realized. A lot of them are on the shelves. We can't see such typology anymore for the last 20 years. One single family houses construction contests are not actually very regular. We have some examples from 90s. In 92, there was abstract context like villa, brick, and in 93, another one. Rental houses, that is the most popular type. And in 2009, there was the first contest for that, and so on. We are going on. The most typical system is filling of the corners in the city centers. For example, Križ Baron Street and Large Place Street, we can see on the picture in different contests. There are some contests about ellipse flats, like at Rantjadambis. City municipality also sometimes announce contests for city residential buildings, but mostly these are typological projects, and the procurement contest is about the construction, not about architecture. The next type is neighborhood of cities. The first is Forburg, one of the first contests of such type. And there is a absolutely new neighborhood realized in 2012, and there are mixed functions. A ground floor has commercial functions, primary functions, that is living. And for the last 20 years, also it is typical not to create new neighborhoods in the existing city, but trying to integrate in the already existing the buildings and environment. There will be, for example, new contest concerning sport appeals, and that imposes a duty for city when cooperating with developer to think about the programs. These contests usually have two rounds. The first is idea on the essence, and the second is more detailed solutions for individual houses, like in Forburg's example. And as the last one, I could say we have urban planning contests that had started in 60s, 70s in Riga. There were several contests organized for Krasta-iela, Mežciems, Jugla. For the last 20 years in Riga, we see efforts of investors to develop ex-industrial territories, like in Mūkusala Street, and the contest was on 2006, 2007. And there, these contests definitely need two rounds. In the first round, practically all may participate. In the second round, there are 4 to 6 participants selected who are then making their program more in detail. We also have free territories, and we have, for example, in Skans, the free territory one contest, which is organized, first of all, in the way of planner, but in the result we have detailed project. I can say that architecture contests are needed as tools in the scale of Riga, in the scale of Latvia, and that is a big tool for a solution of urban problems, possibly by finding something new. Thank you for your attention.